even as some of those who escaped Douma unharmed arrived in northern Syria today, reports from other parts of the country underlined fears a U.S. strike is imminent. With talk of Syrian forces vacating air bases and Syrians broadly stockpiling food and seeking shelter.
We're still assessing the intelligence.
But, said U.S. Defense Secretary James Mattis,
we stand ready to provide military options if they're appropriate, as the president determined.
All of it anticipating a response to last weekend's suspected gas attack in the rebel enclave of Douma outside Damascus. More than 40 people died, hundreds sent to hospital, blamed on the government of Bashar al-Assad, which denies any involvement. After word yesterday, Syrian ally Russia would itself target U.S. missiles if fired at Syria. Today, Donald Trump taunted. Russia vows to shoot down any and all missiles fired at Syria. Get ready, Russia, because, he tweeted, they will be coming. Nice and new and smart, adding, you shouldn't be partners with a gas-killing animal who kills his people and enjoys it. A year ago, this gas attack in Syria brought a swift response from the U.S. 59 cruise missiles fired from destroyers in the Mediterranean. What's the U.S. considering this time?
The president has a number of options at his disposal, and all of those options remain on the table.
Not least those deemed more forceful than last year's response, and all of it with the threat of a Russian counterstrike now raising the unsettling potential of the U.S. and Russia suddenly in direct armed conflict. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Washington.
Britain is also weighing its options and at the same time apparently preparing for the possibility of military strikes. Some British media are reporting that Prime Minister Theresa May has ordered submarines to move within missile range of Syria. Today, May called the chemical attack in Douma shocking and barbaric.
All the indications are that this was the responsibility of the Syrian regime, and we will now work with our closest allies, to see how we can ensure those responsible are held to account, because the continued use of chemical weapons cannot go unchallenged.
Russia still says there's no evidence of a chemical weapons attack, and not only is the Putin regime refusing to back down, it's issuing its own warnings. The CBC's Chris Brown has more on the reaction from Moscow.
Confrontation between nuclear powers is deadly serious, but Russian TV tried to keep things light today, running segments on what food to take to the bomb shelter, if worse comes to worse. While there is no panic in Moscow, there is concern, and in a new park down the river from the Kremlin, we met plenty of people hoping for a positive resolution. Of course this worries me, she said. A war would worry anyone, and I wouldn't want to live through that.
I'm not going to buy a bunker. Yeah, I'm looking that, so I repeat, I'm looking that it will be resolved in some kind of positive way.
Russian commentators seem incredulous with Donald Trump's morning tweets signaling an imminent missile attack on Syria. This is like a crazy house. What's going on in his head, said the host, noting that less than an hour later, Trump said it's time to be nice and stop the arms race. If you want someone stable, well, here you are, said the host. Vladimir Putin was looking statesmanlike today as he welcomed new ambassadors to Moscow, touching on the Syria crisis only briefly. Common sense needs to prevail, said the Russian leader. The U.S. military claims Syria is relocating some of its aircraft, likely to Russia's military base near the Syrian port city of Latakia, which is much more heavily fortified and politically more dangerous for the U.S. to attack. One Russian general has said if the U.S. were to strike there, even U.S. destroyers such as the USS Donald Cook would be a fair target. And analysts on the TV talk show 60 Minutes agreed. We are now very close to the edge of the abyss, said Tatiana Parkalina, as she hoped Russia's red line would not be crossed.
The Kremlin still denies a chemical attack even took place in Syria. Still, it has dialed down the hyperbole in statements today that emphasize cooler thinking over belligerent behavior. Chris Brown, CBC News, Moscow.
The World Health Organization says it's frustrated that it cannot independently confirm reports of a chemical attack in Douma, Syria, because its own people are not there on the ground.
And we call for full epidemiological investigation to be done. So we demand access to Douma so we can provide health care and assess public health impact of this event.
The WHO says they are getting reports from Syrian hospitals that more than 500 people have been treated for symptoms consistent with gas poisoning.